Good morning, good morning. Thank you everyone who is going to watch this live, and for everyone who is watching this after we've done it, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. We really appreciate it. Hopefully everyone had a great weekend. I know I did. Let's get right into it. So this week's topic is going to be fish room storage. If you saw our Instagram, I posted a beautiful photo of a nice, super organized closet. And it's funny because I was trying to think of like, what am I going to post for this? Like, how can I illustrate storage? Like, oh, I should take a picture of all my fish storage areas. And I was like, I'm way too embarrassed. Like, my fish stuff, first off, is scattered throughout the house. It's in my garage. It's in my little storage shed outside. I've got live rock in bins outside. So I'm like, I'm really embarrassed. And it's funny because a bunch of you guys sent me comments and said, hey, I'm really way too embarrassed to show you my fish room stuff. So glad to know that I'm not alone. It makes me feel a little bit better. So let's see. So I'm going to kind of break it down. You know, I live in Vegas where it gets really, really hot. And, you know, I mentioned I store some of my fish stuff outside in the garage. And there's some stuff that it's totally okay to store. It's not temperature sensitive. But there is other stuff that's definitely temperature sensitive. And even if you obviously don't live in the middle of the desert where it gets 120, you know, if you have a closet that you keep your stuff in at your house, you know, you want to make sure that it's at least temperature controlled so it doesn't get like super hot in that closet. There's some things that don't necessarily do well. Hey, thanks for joining from Brazil. We appreciate it. So first off, things that are temperature sensitive. So test kits are going to be one of those things that are temperature sensitive. Sometimes the reagents with them will go bad. That's it. You know, I'll talk about those again when it comes to checking expiration. So test kits are temperature sensitive. Chemicals that you might add to your tank. I know I've got a bottle of Reef Fusion 1 and 2. So I'm not sure how, like, some things just break down in the heat. So you don't want to keep anything that you use on a regular basis in your tank. You don't want to leave that outside or in the garage or, you know, where it's going to get too warm for that. Cold, not an issue, unless you're like in the north where it could freeze. So, but typically cold isn't going to hurt things in the way the heat will. Food and vitamins are two others that you should kind of keep an eye on. You know, food especially, let me pull like some props here. So I pulled together this box of stuff. This is just one of my mini containers that I store things in. So food, especially our food, as long as this sucker is inside, it's not in the heat, it's sealed, it stays in a dry, cool, even dark area, it's gonna last for a long while. Now if you get it wet or, you know, if it sits out in the sun, you can have some issues. So, and not just our food, like any food, cool, dark, dry areas, make sure you keep them like that. If you've got frozen food, I know sometimes people have like the larger fish that they, you know, want those chunkier meats for. Make sure that it's not freezer burnt. Sometimes places have sales and you can buy a bunch for really cheap, and you do that, but you know, by the time you get around to using it, it's freezer burnt, so be careful of that. Vitamins too. I had a thing of vitamins sitting up here, but make sure vitamins are temperature sensitive. So, you know, especially sometimes on the bottle it'll say once opened refrigerate. So keep an eye out for that sort of thing. And along with temperature sensitivity on different items, check the expiration date. So I was mentioning earlier, a lot of these test kits, like this one is, can't see it very well. My light's too bright. So there we go. So this is one of the Salifert test kits. most of these have stickers when their expiration date is. Definitely pay mind to those because, like I said, the reagents might go bad after a certain period of time. And again, food, like I mentioned before, New Life, all of our foods are going to have an expiration on the top. Occasionally I'll get people ask me if the food is still good after the expiration date, if it's like a couple days past it. Yes, typically as long as the food is stored in a cool, dark, dry area, the food hasn't gotten moist, it's good for even a little bit past that expiration date. But if you're uncertain, you don't feel comfortable, you can just toss it out. And the same goes for vitamins. Like I said, refrigerate those usually a lot of times after you open them is good. Things that are not necessarily temperature sensitive that you could probably store in a hot closet or, outside in the cold or whatever. Like dry rocks, sand, a lot of decorations you might use for the tank. So let's see if I can point this down a little bit. Point this down without having it fall out of the container. So I've got a bunch of decorations chilling here in my tank. A lot of times I will go to yard sales or I'll be at the pet store and I'll see these cool decorations on clearance markdown, half price, whatever, and I will pick them up. Shells, it's not going to hurt them to be outside. Before you put them in the tank, make sure you rinse them off. Fake plant, like artificial plants, that's another good one that you can not worry so much about the temperature. Let's see, pumps, power heads, pumps. So in my bin of stuff, I just mentioned that when I'm at yard sales or Craigslist or wherever, if I see people break down tanks and they take it all. So a lot of times it'll come with little small power heads or heaters or stuff like that, which is great. I always like to have some spares on hand. But when you first get them, or even after you take them out of a tank that you were using, make sure to spray them off and wash them off really good. Clean them before you put them in your storage. That way when you need them, they're going to be good and ready to go. You already know that they work. You're not fighting trying to find an outlet to plug them in and test them. So pumps, power heads, always great to have as backup. I know there's 2 in this bin, and I know I've got another bin full of them outside. And if need them for emergencies, but also having extras in case I need another impeller. Let me go see if I've got something similar outside. So that way you've already got it. You don't have to worry about waiting for it to order it or investing in a whole new power head, whatever. So, and I know I'm talking a lot, but I do like to hear from you guys, what you keep in your storage closets, stuff like that, what your storage closets look like, what you keep inside, what you keep outside. And somebody just made a good point. Make sure if you've stored it anywhere, make sure you wash it, but rinse it off before you put it back in your tank. You don't want dust or whatever is on that, to get into your tank. That'd be bad. Coffee. I lost my voice a little bit at work yesterday. I know it was the weekend. I usually work the weekends, but yesterday Vegas celebrated Science is Everywhere, and I volunteered. I gave a whole bunch of tours at our aquarium, behind the scenes of our aquarium for a bunch of different people, and my voice is ugh. Yes. Different sizes is a good idea too. Let's see if I move out of the way. So this little guy is my BioCube. This is another one that somebody was getting rid of, and I was like, sure, I'll take it. I don't have a need for it. And 2 weeks later, my clownfish came down with Uranema, and wouldn't you know, I lucked out. I got a tank ready for him. It had I had some extra filter media in there. I had an extra heater. I was able to set it up right away with no added expense to me other than, the salt and the water for the tank. So always nice to have extra stuff on hand, especially if you can find it for cheap. Why not? If you can afford it, go for it. Something else that I like to keep extras of are filter materials. So I've got, most of my tanks have filter socks. So for every tank that has filter socks, I have a secondary pair of filter socks for all of my tanks. This little BioCube back here runs with filter floss, so I've got a big sheet of filter floss. So when I need to change or do a water change, whatever, I'm always able to switch that out without having to go run and pick some up. I don't know about you guys, if you run filter socks. I clean mine. We throw them in the washing machine. It's super easy. Like, spray them off in the sink, try and get most of that, like turn them inside out, get most of that gunk off, spray them off, and then throw them in the washing machine with like a cap full of bleach and run it on 2 rinse cycles. And then I pull them out and I stick them in a bucket of water with Prime in it. So super easy way to clean filter socks if you've got them. All right, last but not least on my list of storage stuff, must-haves. You know, I mentioned a few minutes ago about how I like to have spare power heads stuff on hand, just, you know, in case you've got a sick fish. Like, you've got everything you need to get your tank set up and running. And I was telling peeps on Instagram that I used to live in Myrtle Beach. I had a little pufferfish that I was like, I wanted to protect him at all costs. You know, where I lived, we were in a hurricane zone. It wasn't, I got lucky, we never had any evacuations while I lived there, but, you know, I always wanted to be prepared. So with him, I always had a hang-on-back air bubbler, which now, I believe somebody said Cobalt makes the USB rechargeable air pumps, so definitely check those out. That's a great idea. So I always had an air bubbler. I always had some sort of bucket, or I think they call them critter catchers. A little plastic container, small, about quarter the size of this box, with a lid. You know, it worked great for small fish. Bigger fish like Frank, he probably wouldn't have appreciated it, but in a pinch, if I needed to get out, I'd scoop them up, put them in there, and get to safety. So travel tanks, and it didn't have to be a tank, it could always be a 5-gallon bucket. I don't know about you, but my salt comes in 5-gallon buckets, so I'm good to go. Usually always have a 5-gallon bucket sitting around that I can use if needed. 2 other things on my list of must-haves are, I like to keep some spare pieces of PVC. I think it was a couple weeks ago, I had like a whole bunch of PVC pieces talking about plumbing. That's all stuff that I have out in my garage, you know, just in case I have to replumb a part of my tank, or especially when you're moving aquariums. A lot of times, the first time we plumbed this tank, we weren't really expecting to move. And so when we moved the first time, we're like, all right, well, when we replumb it, we're gonna plumb it so it's like easy, quick disconnects. And if we have to replace any of the PVC, it's super simple and easy. Hey, good morning, thanks for joining. I tried to do a post this week, so it's like, you guys know, 8 a.m., right around 8 a.m. So yeah, PVC stuff, glue, extra pieces of the same diameter that's in the system. And last but not least, this is my favorite, and I'm in no way, this is not sponsored by Seachem, but I do love their products. Prime. This is great. It is a dechlorinator. It will detoxify ammonia, nitrates, nitrites. One of the things I love about it is that even if you add a little bit extra, it's not going to be harmful. So I really like that I can, I always have this in a pinch if I need it. You know, if for whatever reason you have to make salt water, you don't have any more RO, your fish store is closed, but you've got the salt, you can add something like this to your tap water and it will dechlorinate it. So that is my list of must-haves. Well, in addition to food. I didn't mention food, but this is a New Life Spectrum video, so I feel like that's kind of obvious. So these are the foods that I have on hand that I feed regularly. Y'all, Frank is putting a hurtin'. This is Algimax. Catfish like algae. This is the big jar. Frank loves him some Algimax, but his favorite is probiotics. Although I don't have that. I was feeding my reef tank with probiotics last night. So this is ones that I've always got on hand. Their A is really good. This is what I'm feeding my sick clownfish right now in this BioCube behind me. It's great for new fish. It's good immune boosting food, so that's always good. Let's see. So Reef Cell, my coral food that I usually keep on hand. And, you know, this is a good one. I didn't mention this. So, the gel mix, I have used this to, I've mixed medications in with this. Let's see if I can find it. My Bino stuff. All right. More CChem stuff. This should be like a New Life CChem video. So, this is Canaplex. Frank was sick probably several months back. And I was able to mix this medicine in with our gel mix and made some food for Frank. He was really good. He was able, like, he ate it off my finger, so I knew he was eating. But this is another good, if you have a sick fish. If you've already got the medicines, this is another good one. So yeah, that's my fish, one of my fish storage bins in a nutshell. What do you guys keep in your storage areas? How often do you go through them? That's a good question I didn't ask on Instagram. How often do you go through your stuff? I did some spring cleaning a couple weeks back, and I tried to go through it, and I'm like, oh, I should get rid of this. I'm like, no, but I might need it. So I didn't actually end up getting rid of anything. You check it quarterly. Good for you. Good for you. Yeah, I need to be better on checking stuff. Although, yeah, I've gotten better about doing water tests now. You know, I think being better about water tests, I used to test Frank's water maybe once a month. And now that I have a little nano tank, I'm actually pretty good. I do, my Fridays are spent doing water tests. So it's like, after my water tests are done, then I can officially start my weekend. So, yep. My storage areas in a nutshell. What? Do you think you're getting food, Frank? You know what we haven't done in a while? We haven't done a feeding video. Maybe next week I'll do I'll feed Frank. He's so funny to watch. His little horn is growing back. Oh no! Well, I'm glad you were able to get him better. You know, when I first started out, I was so terrified of incorrectly diagnosing a sick fish that I think actually I lost my favorite fish because I was afraid that I didn't know enough that I would hurt him, and I ended up losing him anyway. So definitely don't be afraid to treat. A lot of medicines that are out in the market now are more broad spectrum, so better to instill confidence. There's a fly in my coffee, guys. That's so sad. The guy out. Fly-filled coffee. Wow. Anyway, as I ramble on and take up time in your day, I'm gonna get off. I will see you guys next week. Do comment and let me know what you keep spare in your storage areas for your fish. How often you go through it. Tell me about what you have. If you're brave enough, post a picture on Instagram or Facebook, or send, I don't know if you can send photos on YouTube, but I'd love to see your fish area. Maybe I'll post a picture of one of mine. You know, just my fish, that's a good question. What's the difference between Cichlid Gold and Cichlid Formula? It's a good question because here in the US, we only have Cichlid Formula. I know over in the UK, they have several different varieties, more so than what we have, because I feel like the trade over there is a little, I don't say more specialized, but with respect to freshwater, there's several different varieties of our freshwater foods. I think probably Cichlid Formula is going to be the one that is the Natrox. You can look on the lid. Let's see if I've got one. Do I have any of the Natrox food in this bin? Yes. So a lot of the new foods, they're condensing the food families and changing all of the foods to the Natrox, the all-natural preservative. So if you can see, it's blurry. All right, so right there, it's backwards for you guys, but it says NEQ. That's if it's got that on the label, that is the new food, and I think the price might be, if that you said price, so that's what I'm guessing is that it's the new Natrox foods, and that's why it's made with the all natural plant-based preservative. So that, I guess, is the reason why. But I can look into it if you send me an email. My email is hillary@feedspectrum.com. I can definitely get back with you for sure. All right, guys, have a wonderful week. I'm glad that Nugget is feeling better. I appreciate all of you guys for spending time with me here today. I will see you next week.